Okay, once you have the Start Point Think Roads flash file open, the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to click on Library at the top up here, and you should be able to see all of these items in the library. The first thing then is on the animation we're going to have a phone. So here you've got phone.jpg. If you click on it once and then hold the mouse down on it with the left button, you can drag it and drop it onto the stage, which is this white background. Now at the moment this is too big, so if we zoom out a little bit, maybe go to 50%, we can use this tool here, the free transform tool, to resize the phone. Try and make it so that it fits nicely on the stage. I'm going to change that view back then to fit in window so that it's a little bit closer. What we're then going to do is we're going to have this phone on for 160 frames. So if we scroll across here using this scroller at the bottom, go to roughly 160, right mouse click on it and go to Insert Keyframe. Now for that entire part of the animation, no matter where we click, the phone will be there. What we're then going to do is we're going to have some messages appearing on the phone. So you need to add a new layer for these messages. So you right mouse click on phone and you go to Insert Layer. Rather than it being called layer 2 or whatever yours is called, if you double click on it, you'll be able to rename it, and we're going to call it messages. Once you've typed it in, just press enter. Then what I need you to do is, to stop us messing up the phone layer, is to click on this dot here underneath the lock, and that will stop us being able to move or break the phone layer. Click on frame number 15 of the messages layer, right mouse click on it and insert a keyframe. Then what we're going to do, we're going to come over here and click on M1. We're then going to drag that onto the phone. So what will happen is, if we go back to frame 1, the animation will play, and then at frame 15 that message will appear. Then what we want on frame 50 is we're going to insert another keyframe, and we're going to come across to here, click on M2 and drag it onto the phone. So now when we play it, frame 15 the first message appears, then frame 50 the next message appears. So the next message we'll put around frame 90. So click on frame 90 of the messages layer, right mouse click and insert a keyframe. Click on M3 and drag it and drop it onto the phone. Okay, then what we need to do is make sure that you've scrolled across so that you can see around 160. We're going to put another layer in by right clicking on messages and going to Insert Layer. Again, we don't want it called layer 4, so we're going to double click on this and we're going to type in road and press enter. Then what we're going to do, on frame 161, so the one after where this one ends, we're going to right mouse click and do Insert Keyframe. Your phone and everything should now disappear because we're ready to start the next part of the scene. From the library over here, you need to find the street symbol, which is this one here. Drag that and drop it so that it fills the whole of the stage, like that. What we're then going to do, on frame 180 of the road layer, we're going to click on it once, we're going to right mouse click and we're going to do Insert Keyframe. That will mean that the road stays there for these frames. We're also then going to scroll across, right mouse click on frame 240 of the road layer and do insert keyframe. What we want to happen is, for this part of the animation, we want this image to fade in. So what we're going to do is click back onto the one that's on 160, and we're going to click on Properties at the top. Click on the image once, and you should get this drop down box come up with Colour Effect. In the drop down box, choose Alpha, and the image should change to white. If it doesn't, use this dragging slider here to drag that all the way down to 0. Then click roughly on 165, anywhere between these two dots will do, and right mouse click and go to Create Classic Tween. What will happen is now that image will fade in and it will be fully visible when it hits this dot here, and then it will just stay there for the rest of the animation. We need to do something similar now, but with the image of the girl that's going to be crossing the road. So we're going to right mouse click on Road and go to Insert Layer, double click on that layer and just call it Girl. Press enter to save that. Insert a keyframe on 160, or the exact one that's above this dot if yours is slightly different. Go to Insert Keyframe, go back to the library up here and find the one that says Girl Symbol, which is this one here. Drag that onto the stage. We're then going to move her down to here just by dragging and dropping her, so that she's walking onto the scene. We're going to right click on the dot above the previous one, so roughly on about 180. Right mouse click and do Insert Keyframe. Click back onto the 160 dot for the girl layer. Click on the image and go to Properties. Change the colour effect to Alpha again. I should probably already change to 0, but again, if not, just set it to 0 here. Right mouse click anywhere between the two dots and go to Create Classic Tween. So now what will happen is the road and the girl will both fade in together. At this point we want the girl to start to walk across the road. So what we're going to do, we're going to insert a keyframe on 240, making sure we're still on 240. We're going to move the girl into the road and we're going to make her smaller. Now if you hold down the Shift key on your keyboard, which is the one with a little up arrow above the Control key, hold that down, and when you resize her she won't stretch. Make her a sort of sensible size for the road and move her to where we want it to be. Right mouse click anywhere between the two dots and go to Create Classic Tween, and if we move this red bar we'll see that she starts to walk across the road. Now obviously her legs aren't moving, but this is our first animation. So she's moving across the road. Okay. We now need to put in a new layer for the car, so we're going to right click on the girl layer and go to Insert Layer. Double click on the layer, call it Car and press enter. If you go back to your library, we'll see that we've got a car symbol. Before we drag that on, I'm just going to set the zoom so that we're further out. Yours might be slightly different on your computer because you've got bigger screens than me. And what we'll do is we will insert a keyframe roughly at about 220 on the car layer. So right click and insert keyframe, making sure that you've got that dot selected so that it's blue. Drag the car symbol just off to the side of the stage. Again, if we hold down Shift and resize that so that it looks like it's going to be a sensible size to cross the road, and we'll leave it just off the edge of the road there. What we're then going to do, we're going to insert by right clicking on 240 of the car layer, or the one that's above the other two dots, and do Insert Keyframe. We're going to move the car so that it just about touches where the girl is about to cross the road. Right mouse click between the two dots and create a classic tween, and what will happen is that car will drive and unfortunately crash into the little girl. Just going to change the zoom so that it's fitting back in the window, and we're going to right click on car and insert another layer, and this time we're going to call it black shape because we want the screen to go black. Press enter to set that. And then on frame 241, going to insert a keyframe, so this is on the one that's after your dots if you've chosen slightly different numbers. And what we're going to do, click on library, choose the black square, drag that, and again make sure it fills the whole screen. We want that black square just to stay there for a second or two, so we're going to right mouse click on about 250 and insert a keyframe. We then want that black to fade out to a white screen again, so roughly on 280, right mouse click, and this is on the black shape layer, and do insert keyframe. Click on the shape and go to properties and change the colour style alpha to 0 if it hasn't done so already. Right mouse click anywhere between the two dots and create a classic tween. So what will happen is they'll go across the road, the car will seemingly hit her, the screen goes black, and then the black fades out to a white screen again. Okay, what we then want to happen is we want a logo to appear, so we're going to right mouse click on the black shape layer and go to insert layer, double click on it and call it logo and press enter. Right mouse click on the frame after the last one, so 281 in my case, right mouse click and insert keyframe. Make sure you're on the library, look for the logo, the Think logo, not the one that says PNG, the other one, and drag that and drop it onto the top left of the screen there. If we then scroll across a little bit, right mouse click on roughly 300 of the logo layer and insert a keyframe, and we'll move that over to the right hand corner, right mouse click anywhere between the two dots and go to create classic tween, and that will move across. We then want our phone to appear again, so we're going to right mouse click on logo and we're going to do insert layer. We're going to double click and we're going to call it phone 2 and press enter. We're going to right mouse click on frame 300, so the one above this one, and do insert keyframe, and we're going to find the phone symbol, which is over here, phone.jpg. So we're going to drag that and drop it onto the stage. If you remember, it was quite big, so make sure you've got the free transform tool selected. If we zoom out and show all, if you hold down shift it won't stretch. Resize it so it fits to the left of the logo. I'm going to change my view so it fits back in the window again. Now what we want is, we want the phone and the Think logo to stay there for a while. So roughly on frame 380, right click on the top layer, which is the phone 2 layer, and do insert keyframe, and exactly underneath that one on the logo layer do insert keyframe so that they stay there. If we then scroll across, what we're going to do is right click on phone 2 and do insert layer, double click, and we'll call it messages 2. Then roughly on frame 310 of the messages layer, right mouse click, insert a keyframe. We're then going to drag, we're going to click on M4 and then drag that onto the phone. We want that to stay there for a few seconds. So roughly on 345 of the messages layer, right mouse click, insert keyframe, and we want message 5 to appear, as though this person's trying to get in contact with the person that's just been run over. Okay, what we're then going to do, right click on messages 2 and go to insert layer, and we're going to call this one police and press enter. I'm going to scroll across a little bit, right mouse click on the next frame along after these ones have all finished, so in my case it's 381. Right mouse click and insert keyframe. We're then going to find the police symbol and we're going to drag that and drop it onto the screen. If you want to make it a little bit bigger so that it fits the screen, you can do so, you don't have to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to insert some more keyframes. We're going to right click on roughly 390 and do insert keyframe. I'm going to do the same on 410, insert keyframe, and then the same roughly here, just after 415, insert keyframe. So what we want to happen is we want this to fade in, stay on the screen, and then fade out again. So on frame 1, we're going to go to properties, on frame 380, but the first dot. Click on the image and change the style alpha to 0. Do the same on the last one of the 4, so roughly 415. Click on the image, change the style alpha to 0. Right click anywhere between the first 2 dots and do create classic tween. Do exactly the same between the next 2 dots and create classic tween. So what will happen is that image will fade in, stay there, stay there, stay there, and then fade out again. We're going to do the same for a couple of other images. So we're going to right click on the police layer, insert layer. I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker because it's exactly the same as this one. Right mouse click on the next dot along and insert keyframe. From the library we're going to find the one called flowers, not flowers JPEG, just flowers, and drag and drop that onto the screen and resize it if you want it to be bigger. We're going to put in 3 more keyframes, so roughly here, here, and here. We're going to change the alpha of the last one. Make sure you click on the image to make it appear to 0. Going to do the same on the first one. Click on the image and change the alpha to 0. Right click between these 2 dots, create classic tween. Right click between these 2 dots and create classic tween again. So now our first image fades in and out, and then in and out again. We're going to repeat that exact same thing again. I didn't rename this layer, so I'm going to double click on it and call it flowers so we know which one it is. I'm going to right click on flowers, insert a layer, double click and call it funeral. Insert a keyframe just after this one. Go to the library, find the funeral, not the one with JPEG, and drag and drop that onto the screen. Going to insert a keyframe about here, move along, roughly here, and then roughly on the end one. Click on the first dot, click on the picture, and change the alpha to 0. Do the same on the last frame, click on the picture, change the alpha to 0, right click between the last 2 dots and create classic tween, and right click between the first 2 dots and create classic tween. The final thing is we want the Think logo to zoom in and appear at the end. So we're going to right click on funeral, insert layer, we'll call it logo 2 and press enter. I'm going to insert a keyframe on one after this last one. On mine it's 481. Right click, insert keyframe. From the library we're going to find the Think logo again, not the one with PNG, and drag it and drop it on the screen. Now I'm going to hold down shift, I'm going to resize it so it's quite small in the middle of the screen. I'm going to scroll across to about 510 in my case, just a gap about that big. Insert a keyframe. By this point we want the picture to have got bigger, so I'm going to hold down shift and resize it. Right click anywhere between the dots and do create classic tween, and you'll see that that zooms in. And if you press enter on your keyboard, that will start the animation at the beginning and you'll be able to see everything that you've just created. What I'd like you to do now is to add some facts onto the end of this animation using the techniques like zoom in and fade in So find some facts and try and get those to zoom in or fade in at the end of this animation.